The Hill is reporting on an interesting story that gives us a really important clue about Donald Trump's campaign. They say President-elect Donald Trump will take a victory tour across the states he won on Election Day in the coming weeks, his campaign said Thursday. George Gigicos, interesting name, the Trump campaign's advanced team director, said groundwork is being done for the president-elect's first trip. So, what this means is he's going to continue to do rallies while he's in office. Now, this was something, there were some leaks previously where people were saying, oh, we think that's what's going to happen. We think he's going to keep doing rallies. And a lot of people were like, yeah, come on, he's not going to do that. Presidents don't do that. But apparently he wanted to. Well, now we know it's true, and he's going to go on a victory tour to do more rallies. Now, what this tells me is that some earlier stories in the campaign, now I'm totally convinced of. I was 50-50 on them before. Now I'm not 50-50. Now I totally believe it. So, what story am I referring to? Well, there was a story about how Donald Trump, when he got the nomination in the primary, he approached John Kasich and his team, or his people spoke to Kasich's people, and they said, look, here's the deal. We think Donald Trump is basically a good cheerleader for the country. We want to offer John Kasich the VP role, and we want him to basically be the president. We want him to handle all domestic affairs, all foreign affairs, the economy, everything. So would he accept that role? Would John Kasich accept that role of being the VP who's essentially the president? Now, Kasich turned it down. He wanted nothing to do with Donald Trump. But the Trump campaign, when that story leaked, the Trump campaign was like, no, that didn't happen. No, that's not true at all. Now when I hear this, I go, oh, no, it did happen. Because in that article, they say, this was the first time you heard this line of thinking, that, well, what Trump really wants to do is he wants to go around, as Kasich runs the country, Trump wants to go around the country and do rallies and get people riled up and ready to make America great again and do his little cheerleader thing. Well, that's exactly what he's actually going to do now that he got elected. So there was another article, too, which spoke about how there were people who were in the campaign, in Donald Trump's campaign, early on, and some of them left. And one person wrote a piece online saying, look, I was in the Trump campaign. I had kind of worked my way up to a pretty high position. And I can tell you, they do not expect this success, and they do not expect to win. This was written, I think, maybe a little after he got the nomination, or just before he got the nomination for the Republican Party. And this person's like, it's all a surprise to them. It's all a surprise. Trump wanted to go in there, make a run here, kind of like whatever Michelle Bachmann or Herman Cain did the last time around, up his brand. And they even go as far in one of the pieces to say, to get a better position in his negotiation for his reality show because the contract was up. So he wanted to, lift the Trump brand even more. So him leading in the polls, winning the debates, and then eventually actually winning primaries and caucuses, they were like, he didn't really expect this. They didn't expect this. They're not nearly as organized as the other candidates. They really don't know what they're doing. He's kind of shooting from the hip, and he just keeps going up in the polls. They did this in the South Park episode recently, where Mr. Garrison is Donald Trump, and he's just like, it doesn't matter what I say, I keep going up in the polls. I don't understand. This is insanity. And there were times where it looked like Trump was actually trying to throw the fucking campaign. You remember the whole time in the general election when he was going around saying Obama founded ISIS, and he just kept repeating it, to the point where even Hugh Hewitt, a conservative radio host, tried to soften the blow and pitch him a softball, and he was like, well, Don, I get what you're saying. You're trying to say that, he created the vacuum, and then out of the vacuum rose ISIS, but he didn't found it. And Trump's like, no, he founded it. Founder. He's the founder. So even then, I entertained the thoughts for a second, like, no, maybe he really is trying to throw this thing. Now, I think at the end, or during the general election at some point, he was so close that he could smell the office, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it, let's go for it. But I don't deny the reports from the people who were in the campaign who were like, dude, they were surprised. They didn't expect to get this far. He didn't expect to win. There's been multiple accounts of this. People within the campaign who have left have came out and said it. They said, that's why I left the campaign. That's why I left the campaign. He's not the guy I thought he was, and also he's not expecting to win. And now that mixed with the John Kasich story, mixed now with hearing that he wants to do a victory tour, I'm convinced, man. He's in way over his head. I mean, he's in over his head even if he wanted it from the beginning. But he ain't ready for this. And they say, well, the whole idea of continuing to do rallies, some people are blown out of proportion. They say, oh, that proves he's like Hitler, because that's what, if you're already elected and you do rallies, who does that? Fascists. Hitler does that. But to me, what it tells me is he's exactly who you think he is in terms of gratification. So he's like an empty shell of a human, and he looks for validation everywhere. And the instant validation that you get from a rally is one of those things that makes him feel good. One of the few things that makes him feel good. So that's why he loves it, and that's why he wants to keep doing it. And that's another reason why he ended up beating Hillary Clinton, is that he did way more rallies and campaign events than she did. And they even said that, she didn't step foot in Wisconsin. And that's insane. She needed to fucking campaign in Wisconsin. She ended up losing Wisconsin. This was part of the Democratic firewall. She didn't even fucking campaign there. Trump was doing events everywhere. He would do, multiple speeches in a day and travel all over the place and just nonstop. So he flat out outworked her. How was he able to do that? Because that's what he loves to do. He loves to talk in front of the crowds. He loves to get the cheers. He loves to have that wash over him. That's his drug. So hearing that he's going to do a victory tour, which is not a thing, but now he's making it a thing, not surprising, and it kind of validates the other stories in my mind. Certainly the Kasich story. Hey, if he wins, you interested in basically being president? I believe that. And now, that's why he might be falling back on. He's mixing his administration up with lobbyists and corporate insiders and people who are part of the establishment and some actual right-wing Kool-Aid drinkers like Steve Bannon. He's trying to mix his administration up. My guess is he's really going to let them kind of take the reins, or let somebody take the reins, because this shows yet again he's more interested in the campaigning aspect and the adulation aspect and the title President of the United States than anything else.